In the jungles of Thailand, life follows its own rules. Here, one creature's survival often means another's death. That's just the way of nature. But when it comes to our pets, that reality is completely unacceptable. When Lin and Jai inherited an old family farm on the outskirts of Kanchanaburi province, they soon realized their aging dog was no longer up to the task of watching over the vast property bordering the wild rainforest. That's why they decided to get a German Shepherd. The puppy was named Tiger, and he grew up surrounded by his owner's love and care. A particularly strong bond formed between him and Jai. The dog followed him everywhere like a shadow. The dog was affectionate, but his behavior sometimes made Lin nervous, especially when he would freeze, staring intently into the jungle, and then start growling deep in his chest, as if seeing something invisible to the human eye. Shortly after the puppy arrived, their old dog passed away from old age. Now when Tiger went out with Jai, Lin was left completely alone. For a woman raised in the city, this was a real challenge. Nights in the Thai jungle are something else. Total darkness without a single street light, menacing monkey calls, and the rustling of unseen creatures in the undergrowth. This might be an exciting adventure for some, but not when you're alone in an old house in the middle of nowhere. When Jai had to spend the night out on the far reaches of the farm, Lin couldn't settle down out of fear. Realizing this, her husband found a solution. One day he came home and asked Lin to get something from the pickup truck. A surprise awaited her on the passenger seat. A little German Shepherd puppy who immediately started wagging its tail and licking her face. The puppy was named Malay, and she immediately charmed not only Lin but also Tiger. The dogs became inseparable friends, but one day, everything changed in the most tragic way. By the time Tiger was 3 years old, life on the farm had settled into a steady rhythm. The days passed quietly and predictably. Tiger still accompanied Jai on his rounds of the property, and Malay was Lin's loyal companion. On that fateful day, Jai returned from his rounds and asked where Tiger was. Lin hadn't seen him all day, assuming he'd gone out with her husband. Panic set in. All day, Malay had been unusually agitated, barking constantly and trying to run off somewhere, so Lin had been forced to keep her inside the house. Now they realized the dog had sensed something. The last time Tiger was seen was early that morning when, as usual, he'd gone out first. He always woke up before Malay, who loved to sleep in. Malay's failure to accompany him that morning might have been a fatal mistake. Putting Malay on her leash, they hoped the dog would lead them to Tiger. The dog lunged forward, barking furiously, and pulled them down the dirt path behind the house. What they saw chilled the couple to the bone. The tracks of a huge python snaked across the ground, but that wasn't what caught their eye. Scattered beside the snake tracks were tufts of brownish-black fur, some stained with blood. Malay whimpered softly, and they understood. She realized too that they would never see Tiger again. There was nothing they could do in the dark. Hearts heavy, they returned home. Jai was beside himself with grief and rage. At dawn he went searching for the snake. Even though Tiger couldn't be brought back, they couldn't allow a huge python to live so close to their home. There was a chicken coop in the backyard and they were well aware of how vulnerable it was. But even though the snake should have been sluggish after such a large meal, they still couldn't find it. The trail vanished into the tall grass, as if the python had been carried off through the air. They searched for several days, but the snake seemed to have vanished into the jungle. Months passed. The rainy season arrived, and the python had likely found a cozy place to hibernate. Back home, Lin and Jai couldn't help but feel guilty. Malay seemed depressed too. She slept a lot and gained weight from her decreased activity. At least, that's what they thought until Lin realized something extraordinary. Malay was expecting puppies. Tiger's puppies. It felt like a small miracle, as if a piece of their beloved pet had returned to them. They watched Malay carefully, trying to keep her close to the house. Losing her or the puppies would be unbearable. Everything was planned. A day or two before she was due, they would take her to the vet. But puppies, like babies, don't always stick to the plan. One evening, returning from dinner, they found Malay in her bed with 2 tiny puppies beside her. As the couple recovered from their surprise, Malay began showing signs of distress again, and soon a 3rd puppy was born. But it wasn't showing any signs of life. Jai took the pup in his hands, rubbed it gently, pressed it against his chest and blew into its nose. Suddenly the puppy started breathing. When he was returned to his mother, everyone saw how much he resembled Tiger as a puppy. It was a bittersweet moment. For several months the family lived peacefully. The puppies brought so much joy that the grief over Tiger's loss gradually faded. But this idyllic peace couldn't last forever. Danger was much closer than they realized. By the start of the dry season, the puppies were old enough to play in the yard. The house had a secure fence to keep the dogs from running off into the jungle, but on this day that didn't matter. Malay was carefully watching the puppies play in the yard when a sound or scent caught her attention. Before she could react, the puppies had wandered dangerously close to a huge python. Malay darted between them, trying to protect them, but the puppies were too small and curious to understand the danger. The puppies kept trying to get closer to the strange creature. Each time one got near the snake, Malay blocked its path, but keeping track of all three wasn't easy. Focused on the puppies, she didn't notice the python coiling to strike. If Malay had been watching the snake, maybe she could have dodged it. Then again, considering this was likely the same python that killed Tiger, who knows how it would have ended. Before she could react, the snake wrapped itself around her and began to tighten its coils. Lin was inside the house and heard Malay barking. She was about to go out and check when the barking abruptly stopped. Lin assumed everything was fine, never suspecting the dog had fallen silent because she could no longer breathe. Jai was working in his workshop and didn't see a thing. If either of them had glanced at the security cameras, they would have immediately seen the danger their dog was in. Malay was completely at the python's mercy. She couldn't bark and could barely breathe. Was this really the end? Would one snake truly orphan three puppies? The python squeezed its coils tighter and tighter, and then the incredible happened. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, all three puppies started barking furiously. They even tried biting the snake, though their bites were little more than pinpricks to the massive python. All they managed to do was anger the python, which, enraged, sank its teeth into Malay, tightening its grip on its prey. It squeezed its coils even harder. The puppies couldn't help their mother, but their frantic barking caught Lin's attention. She'd never heard her pets bark like that before. And Malay's sudden silence now frightened her even more. What Lin saw in the yard made her blood run cold. Her beloved Malay was in the death grip of one of the largest pythons she had ever seen. Three frantic puppies darted back and forth, watching the snake constrict their mother. Without losing a second, Lin scooped the puppies into a nearby crate. Protecting them was the priority. She screamed for Jai to come running and grab the vinegar. Hearing Lin's terrified scream, Jai instantly knew something terrible had happened. He guessed immediately it was the same python that had killed their beloved Tiger. They were determined not to lose another dog. Splashing vinegar on the python's head, they knew it might hurt Malay too. The vinegar would sting in the bite wound, but saving her life was all that mattered. Recoiling from the vinegar, the python opened its jaws and loosened its grip, trying to get away from the unpleasant sensation. This gave Jai and Lin the chance to wedge their hands between the snake's body and the dog. Starting from the tail, the python's weaker end, they carefully began to unwind its coils. Meanwhile, they kept the snake's head away from Malay so it couldn't bite her again. Soon Malay was free. They didn't know the extent of her internal injuries, but as soon as she was free, she started taking deep, whimpering breaths. She was alive. While Jai held onto the snake, Lin brought a large container. They could have taken revenge on the creature that had already taken one dog from them and nearly killed a second. But Lin and Jai tried to live in harmony with nature. They understood the python was just a wild animal trying to survive. They didn't kill it for revenge. However, they also couldn't leave it near the house. Having found easy prey, it might return again and again. After poking air holes in the container's lid, they decided to deal with the snake later. Right then, the priority was getting Malay to the vet urgently. They secured the puppies safely inside the house and rushed to the clinic. Malay was conscious and responsive, but clearly in a lot of pain. The snake might have broken bones or caused internal injuries. They also needed to make sure the bite wound wouldn't get infected. Although pythons aren't venomous, any bite carries a risk of infection. X-rays showed several broken ribs, but overall Malay was incredibly lucky. If it hadn't been for the puppies trying to protect her and alerting their owners, things could have ended very differently. For several days, Lynn and Jai had to make sure the puppies didn't jump on their mother or disturb her injuries. They carefully cleaned the bite site and gave Malay her prescribed medication. To their immense relief and joy, Malay recovered quickly. Now the whole family was safe. Lynn and Jai decided to keep all 3 puppies. There was certainly enough room on the farm for 4 dogs. The puppy Jai had revived at birth grew into the spitting image of his father, Tiger, not just in looks but in temperament too. He formed the same powerful bond with Jai that Tiger once had. Now their big, furry family was inseparable. As for the python, they didn't kill it. Instead, it was relocated to a natural enclosure at a serpentarium, where it could live freely without being able to return to their farm or threaten others. It was the best decision for everyone involved. After all, there had to be enough room in this jungle for both people and animals as long as everyone respected boundaries. Every evening, as the sun dips below the rainforest canopy and the first stars prick the dark Thai sky, Lynn and Jai smile watching their 4-legged family play in the yard. Malay, ever watchful and caring, looks after her now-grown pups, and they, having inherited the best qualities of both parents, faithfully guard the farm. And though the ache of Tiger's loss never completely disappears, his spirit lives on in his pups. His story became something of a local legend told on long evenings, a tale of love, loyalty, and the importance of always protecting the ones you love.